Well, good morning, everyone. I just took my granddaughter to work, dropped her off, and on the way back home, I stopped at the little woods below the driveway to my home. Thought I would try this spot today. It's a nice little woods. It's really small, but it's nice in here. And I just set the camera up to try, excuse me, to see if I could get it situated right to make a video here. I don't know exactly what I want to talk on. I didn't pick a subject yet, but there is a lot of things that I've mentioned several times that I could talk on that I've been through in life. I don't know. I know that the subjects aren't going to appeal to everybody. And when you're speaking with the public, you run into all kinds of different personalities. And I know that everyone can't agree and can't get along. And I'm not here to try to appease people's personality. I just want it to be an interesting thing that people enjoy so much, even though they may not agree with what I say. There's maybe a ring of truth that they hear that brings them back, and they'd like to hear more. And we don't have to agree on everything. I'll tell you what, one thing is this. When it comes down to me, I have to be honest with myself. Some of the things that I come to really believe that they are true, I would not have agreed with myself on maybe just 10 or 15 years ago. I probably would have talked them down and tried to prove them wrong and everything. Excuse me, I got some kind of they say when you got this, you got a frog in your throat. Boy, I hope not. I'd like to know how you got in there without me knowing about it. Yeah, anyway, yeah, I wouldn't agree with myself even just 15, 20 years ago, and you probably wouldn't too. And if you do, if a person does come to an understanding when they're, say, 20 years old, and everything stays the same for the next 50 years, and now they find themselves being 70 years old and they still believe the same way they did when they were 20, that is a great indicator to me that they haven't grown much. Religious people, I'm going to talk about this a little bit today, I guess. Religious people used to ask, they still do, but they used to ask me, that's why I remember these things, if I believed in creation or evolution. They didn't realize it, but they were giving me a multiple choice test right there. I had two choices, and they decided that I should have two. Either creation was created by a great God, or we evolved. And that's the only options that they gave me. Well, at that time, I was just seeking out what I was finding in the world, what the truth is about a lot of things. And I realized, I thought, well, I'm going to have to, I got to look into this. I don't know. I'm getting older, but I just don't know. And then I found out that meant I was an agnostic. Agnostic means I don't know what that answer is, the right answer. I don't know. I don't know if God exists or not. Well, if I believed he didn't exist, I would be an atheist. A theist is a believer in God. An atheist is someone that does not believe God exists. A Gnostic means, well, I know. And I know a lot of people, they feel like they know everything. But that's a Gnostic, Gnostic. But an agnostic means you ask me if God exists. I don't know. That's what I was when I was about 20 years old, an agnostic. But as time went by, I learned some things. And this is where most people don't want to go through, because it's mind-wrenching to study the Bible, to tell you the truth, especially the Old Testament. The Old Covenant is in the Old Testament. And it's essentially the history of, most people say the Jews, but no, it's not. It's a history that goes back before there was a nation called Israel. And Israel was made up of 12 sub-nations, 12 tribes, and just one of them's Jewish. They were descended from Judah. Reuben, Simeon, Gad, Levi, Asher, Issachar. There's 12 of them. And there was a 12 sons, 12 tribes, but there was also a girl. Her name was Dinah. But you never hear about that. Anyway, the record of the Bible goes back beyond the time when Israel existed. And people say, I've heard them say, that when the Bible says that there's a time coming when the first shall be last and the last shall be first, they say it's a chronological study, that what that means, that the first shall be last and the last shall be first, is Christ came to the Jews first, and they didn't accept him as the Messiah, but the Gentiles did. And he came to them last, but they accepted him, so that the Gentiles was first and the Jews are last. But that is not what that means. That's not what that set of scriptures is trying to teach. You got to realize Jesus Christ never spoke English. And that's the kind of Bibles we have. He spoke Aramaic and Greek. Christ spoke Greek and Hebrew. Hebrew is the Old Covenant, the Old Testament. The New Testament was written in Greek and Aramaic. We don't have any. Do you have a Greek Bible? No, yours is English just like mine. So all of those original languages were translated into the English so we could read it. And the word foremost, the most important, was translated as the first. The least among us, the least. The less important in the eyes of society. Those the English translators translated into the last ones to be chosen for any particular job, the last one that you would want to talk to. They are the, I don't want to say mean people, because I don't mean it, but I mean, when I say mean, I'm using it in mathematical references, like the average, the mean, the middle segment of people, what they call lower class. That's the last people. So when Christ said the time is coming when the first shall be last and the last shall be first, think of some of the first that you know today, not in chronological order, but in importance, in social standing, the big wigs, the narcissistic people. Know any of them? That's what the Bible means, that those kind of people will be last. Last what? Last to be part of a society that's coming here, referred to in the Bible as the kingdom of God. So it's going to have a king. But you're going to have a lot of people, human beings, that would like to be king. As a matter of fact, in the book of Samuel, Samuel was one of the very first prophets. He came to God in prayer, crying. He had tears in his eyes. Now, this was way back in ancient history. Excuse me. And God said, why are you so sad? Now, he knew, but he wanted to hear Samuel describe why. He said, why are you weeping? And Samuel said, because the people, they've come to me. And what people is he talking about? He was talking about the 12 tribes of Israel, compared to all the rest of the people on the earth at that time. He said, the people have made me feel bad. And God said, and why is that? He said, they told me that they would, up to this point, God had been actually the king of the people. It was a theocracy, God at the top of it. He had some judges. He worked with prophets, and he protected the people, provided for them, taught them. And they said, at this point where Samuel came up to God, the people said that they would like to have a king over them, like all the other nations. But here we have a God over us, an elevated being up higher. We'd like to have a king too. You ought to see the holidays they got. We really would enjoy, life if our king was like us, a physical being. But you come sometimes and go, and he just started crying. And God said, Samuel, listen, hey, take it easy. They haven't rejected you, they have rejected me. You shouldn't be despondent like that. It's going to be okay. What God is thinking of is a time frame of eternity. Did you ever see grass grow? No. But it does. It does it without us noticing that. Well, God is in a time reference that we can identify with, that doesn't travel fast or slow. It's like now time. It's where, in his experience, the past exists The future exists and the present exists all at the same time for God. For us, it's linear, a serial thing. And it was hard for the people to identify with someone running their government that they couldn't see at times, and just had this ability that they didn't. And everybody else seemed to be having so much fun with their pagan holidays and things. And so, how many people studied into that? You know, people are so quick, they feel like they have to form an opinion immediately. As soon as you got a group of 4 or 5 people together, and somebody brings up another person who's not in that group, but everybody knows that person, maybe because they're of the same town or something, and they bring them up in a conversation, every one of them people in that group will feel like they have to now, at this point, develop an opinion about that person. And see, what did I hear about them? What did I hear? You know, what, let's see here. So, because they want to be maybe thought as one who's knowledgeable, who is discerning, and can give you a judgment about that person. Oh, I don't, you know, that guy mows his grass so low that he actually burned. I don't know. They're looking for something negative to make a judgment call on. And they might keep it inside of their mind, not say anything. And then one of them or two may, even the first time that person was ever brought up in a conversation, you'll find out that they were able to accomplish what they wanted. While they were sitting there, yep, they developed an opinion. How many things around us exist that we can't see? Did you ever see electricity? You know, hardly any of the energy that we deal with daily can we see. We can see the matter, material things, but there are other things like energy. Now, I studied a lot of science and looked into the Bible, excuse me, and I don't like to make quick opinions because I find out the truth is often so simplistic that people just right over their heads. Okay, let's say for a minute that I'm not a very spiritual person. I haven't studied into the Bible that much because I thought it was old wives' tales and legends from the past that aren't appropriate today. Say that's the way I feel. And then somebody asks me, you know, I was going to church and I was listening to the preacher, and then I started studying the Bible myself. And I found out that we are spirit beings having a physical experience. That's what they're calling us now. What do you think about that? And then I start to think about it. And they say, we are supposed to be conscious energy in a physical body. And when it dies, when that body dies, the Bible says in Ecclesiastes, the book of Ecclesiastes by Solomon, that the spirit that our consciousness is doesn't wear out, but the body does. And the body dies. And it says right there, the body goes back to the earth from whence it came. And the spirit goes back to God who gave it. Well, let me see what science says about this. So you go and you look at the laws of thermodynamics, Euclidean physics, and Newtonian physics, and you find out that What is matter? Well, they define matter. That's what our body is. As anything that has weight and takes up space. That's our body, yeah. And cannot easily be created nor destroyed. Oh, that's just half of us then, what you was telling me. Our body is that. But we, you said, was energy. Our conscious mind is energy. So what does science say about energy? Oh, I don't know. I'll have to go look. So you go home, get on your computer or open up encyclopedia, and you start finding out, okay, what? I just learned to see matter is anything that takes up space and has weight and cannot easily be created or destroyed. Now, energy, it says, the nature of energy is that energy cannot be created. Energy cannot be destroyed. What? I'm energy, and energy can't be destroyed. Are you serious? I'm thinking to myself. Energy cannot be destroyed. My body's going to die, but I'm not. So what's going to happen to me? I don't know. Let me go back to the Bible and look. What did it say there again in Ecclesiastes? That the body goes back to the earth from whence, that's that old English word, whence, from whence it came. The body, it decays. It gets pulled apart and goes back into the atom bank of the planet here. So the other things can be made out of the molecules that used to be me. But the body goes back there. And the spirit, though, which you said is energy, goes back to God who gave it. Wait a minute. If it goes back, you know, that's an interesting word, back. You mean that's where I came from? Right. That's right. That's why it goes back. Because you have what the Bible calls the earnest, which is the smallest amount you can conceive of the Spirit of God. That's why you go back to God, because that's where you came from. Now, what does that mean? So the Spirit is eternal. Oh, so that's what they mean when they say we're a spirit being having a physical experience in this life. Right. Now, let me tell you something this is what I came to when I was asked if I believe in creation or evolution. They gave me, oftentimes, almost everybody did, they would give me a multiple choice question that had two possible answers. Instead of letting me tell them what I thought, they just wanted to let me choose one. But here's what I think. If I had to describe the job of God, I would say this being that we refer to as God, first and foremost, is lawgiver. He gave all the laws of physics, all the laws that Newton discovered, all the laws that Euclid discovered, and even the quantum physics laws that we have nowadays. Those are all God's laws. He does not. You know, if you would sit down with a child and say, "Hey, Jimmy, see that tree out there in the field?" Jimmy'd say, "Yeah." He'd say, "God made that. Let me tell you about God." And they start telling a little boy about God. And the little boy interrupts him 4 or 5 minutes and said, "Did God make that tree?" Oh, another tree out. Yeah, God made all these trees. What's that boy supposed to think? You know, like Santa Claus that sneaks in your house and brings presents down the chimney from North Pole? Oh, somewhere along the line, everybody figures that one out. But it doesn't matter how old people get when they grow up, they can't figure this thing about God and evolution. God is a lawgiver. He does not kneel down in a man's field and plant a tree at night while the guy's sleeping. No. God creates by laws. He's a lawgiver. And he has put laws in his creation. They have to respond to it, just similar to our DNA, and how as time goes by and we grow, different things are triggered and kicked in, and we start growing hair, we start going through puberty, we start doing things at a timed rate. That's the law of God in action. You know, if you look around, if you can see any of this forest behind me, if you can pick out a big tree, if there is a big one, and there's one down there, a big maple, I believe it is. Let's take an acorn from an oak tree, for example. You know how big it is? Like this, maybe? You know that tree was not inside of that acorn, don't you? Everything needed to make that tree was the same place our body goes back to when we die. The atom bank, the ground out here. You know, an average mature oak tree weighs 50 tons. Yeah, I had to look that up before I knew where I was speaking. That's what I've done all my life. Anyway, what was in that seed then? Could it be instructions? How to follow this particular law given by the great lawgiver, our Creator? Yes, instructions. When you stick that acorn in the ground, by proxy, you are commanding the ground to assemble itself into a big oak tree because God said so. That's what's happening all the time. Okay. What I've kind of segued into here is that God creates by giving instructions to his material to assemble. Listen, we also say that, do you believe in God? Do you believe in creation or evolution? I believe that we were created by evolution, which is obviously a very powerful law of God. And as I studied into this, I find out that there is physical evolution and there's also spiritual evolution. And we have a physical body, and we are destined to have an energy body. The Apostle Paul calls it celestial body, and the followers of the law of one today call it a light body, an energy body. The same thing. So is there any evidence at all in this? Instead of worshiping God, they worship the Bible. Well, the Bible has errors in it. Yeah, I'll talk about this on some other video because this is a very big subject. But I just want to tell you that, yeah, there's a place in the Bible that jumped out at me after my mind started opening up. And it's in before there ever was an Israel. You know, just to tell you, the first man called was not just a man, but a family. And they were Babylonians. They were called out of Babylon. Terah was Israel's father. Anyway, I don't want to get into that right now either, because that is a whole line that needs to be dealt with separately. Here's the thing. When you read about before there ever was an Israel, when God is here working on the earth, and you might be surprised to find out which gods these were, because there's a family of gods, not just one. And obviously, you're part of that family because you go back to God when your body wears out before, so it can be put in another one. This is called reincarnation. The Bible teaches reincarnation, believe it or not, for a reason. It's a big subject. So let me get, if I can, get back to what I was going to tell you. No, God did not kneel down and plant that tree out there in the field. Here's how he did it. He gave a command to the ocean to make the fish, and this is odd, even the fowls of the air. And it's in the first chapter of the whole Bible in Genesis. And God said, let the earth, not me, I ain't going to do it. He said, let the earth bring forth the fish of the sea and the fowls of the air. Okay, listen. Just like I talked to the oak tree, the seed, instructions into the ground, and command, follow my law, build a tree. You, the waters of the earth, bring forth the fowl of the air and the fish of the sea. And then you, the earth, then he talks to the planet itself and instructs it to bring forth the fruits, the vegetables, the trees, and all of that. So even the Bible itself, by way of example, shows that God is a lawgiver. He is not a gardener or a farmer or a seed planter. No, no, no. His greatness is even greater than that. He is the lawgiver. And listen, folks, if you have a family Bible about that big, I'd like to reduce it down to, it's just hard to follow, hard to understand. Let me reduce it down to just one word, the whole Bible. You don't need to know the genealogy of Japheth or the genealogy of Reuben, Simeon, Gad, Levi. You don't need to do all of that. God wants us to live by principle and not by the letter of the law, but the principle of the law. Now, if you've been worrying about, let me tell you here, this. Don't worry about understanding that whole big book. Just understand Galatians chapter 5, verse 14, where it says this. Now, concerning God's laws, There's a lot of them. But here's all you got to know. The Apostle Paul told the people that lived at Galatia this: for all, not 99%, all, that's 100%, right? For all the law is fulfilled in one word, even this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. So if you want to be counted as one aligning himself with God, then show love to your neighbor. And that is a big subject. I better stop right here, because I'll be sitting here probably for the rest of the week. Love you folks, the ones that are out there listening and wondering, dropping by. I appreciate you. Thanks for stopping by.